As we earlier discussed, one key category of resources and capabilities is a firm's human resources. In today's knowledge-based economy, human resources and the tacit knowledge embedded in them have become increasingly more important. A firm's scientific human capital often helps them with development and refinement of new technologies. A firm's specialized marketing and sales representatives are often crucial to delivering products to customers. Strategic decision makers and management may provide managerial capabilities. Given this increasing importance, how do firms base their sustained competitive advantage on human resources? Is it enough for them to recruit and train teams of employees with valuable and rare knowledge and assure that no other competitor imitate or substitute this approach? Is difficulty to imitate and substitute still a sufficient condition for sustained advantage? Human resources are different from other resources and capabilities in a few important ways that require further examination. In particular, the VRIN conditions may not be enough for analyzing human resources. Let's compare two of Pixar's resources. In its first feature animated movie in 1995, Pixar based its story on the interactions between Woody, the cowboy doll voiced by Tom Hanks, and Buzz, the astronaut.
I think you've had enough tea for today. Let's get you out of here, Buzz.
Don't you get it? You see the hat? I am Mrs. Nesbit.
Snap out of it, Buzz!
Woody's character is a copyrighted resource that Pixar frequently draws on its movie sequels, theme parks, toys, and merchandises. It has turned to be valuable, rare, and difficult to imitate. At the same time, Woody cannot get upset with Pixar's management and move to a competitor. Woody cannot take the recognition that it received within Pixar movies and then set up his own animation company. Woody cannot negotiate for higher salary to appear in Toy Story sequels or for every time that his face appears on a t-shirt. To make the matters easier, Woody does not get tired, lose motivation, or demand more opportunities in Pixar movies. But what about Woody's voice? Tom Hanks is certainly a valuable, rare, and difficult to imitate talent for Pixar. Unlike Woody, though, Hanks can quit his relationship with Pixar and reduce Pixar's ability to earn money from Toy Story sequels. He can be unmotivated and not work as expected. He can also demand higher salaries and better contracts. This contrast between Woody, the animated character, and Hanks, the voice talent behind it, shows the complexities of creating and sustaining advantage arising from human resources. Generally speaking, we can think about three categories of complexities that firms face in this regard: employee mobility, lack of motivation, and salary negotiations. Employee mobility and turnover are threats for sustaining competitive advantage, because as employees exit a firm, they take with them the knowledge that they learned in the process. Sometimes, competitors seeking to replicate a firm's advantage may poach its employees, whereas in some other instances, employees may themselves search for outside opportunities. Their search for other employment options may conclude as they join other established firms or as they decide to set up their own startup. These departures can often have devastating effects on firm performance, in particular if employees leave in teams and if they form a competing startup firm. In these cases, the functions and activities conducted by these employees need to be filled in the focal firm, and the associated turnover may bring about short-term financial losses. But importantly, the knowledge walking out of the door with an employee is transferred to a competitor firm, threatening a firm's advantageous position. Scientific human capital and star scientists can take with them the tacit knowledge of technologies and methods. Professional employees in legal affairs, marketing, and accounting can take their social network and contact books of clients. Managers take the organizational routines and norms governing the focal firm. Now, what can firms do to mitigate these hazards? There are at least 3 approaches to consider. First, inclusion of a non-compete clause in employment contracts and a credible threat of its enforcement can often restrict employee mobility. Non-compete clauses typically stipulate a time period within which employees cannot join or start a competing business. Second, firms can adjust their wages and financial rewards to reduce employee incentives to leave. They can raise wages above the market levels and make the absolute pay level consistent with the role and uniqueness of employee skill sets. Beyond the absolute pay levels, firms can also account for relative compensation across their employees. Low wage dispersion between high-performing and low-performing employees may often hurt high-performing ones and trigger their departure. The third solution can come from non-pecuniary incentives and factors. Providing the organizational structure and culture that promote flexibility and autonomy may help with retention of knowledge workers. When these employees perceive availability of internal growth options, they may be again less likely to consider outside options. Further, some employees may be concerned with their prestige and engagement with the communities from which they come. For example, scientific human capital may often seek to maintain their relationship with academia and scientific community. For these employees, the ability to publish their research findings and attending conferences may be an influential factor in their employment choice. Overall, legal enforcement of non-compete clauses, as well as provision of financial and non-pecuniary rewards, may limit employee mobility and its risks for competitive advantage. Employees' lack of motivation can be another threat for sustaining competitive advantage. Advantages that draw on employees for their realization will always depend on the level of motivation and commitment of employees. Many of the same financial and non-pecuniary rewards that help retain employees also help motivate them. In your organizational behavioral class, you will encounter additional approaches to enhance employee motivation. The other complexity with human capital is their salary negotiations. Remember how Hanks could have asked for a better contract for the voiceover in Toy Story 2 and 3 once he knew how successful the first Toy Story movies had become? When employees demand higher salaries, they ask for a higher share of the value that they created for the firm. Despite the employee's role in making a firm's products better than its rivals, this follow-up negotiation leaves a firm with a lower profit margin. Here, firms need to manage a balanced approach that accounts for both value creation and value capture outcomes. Overall, as firms base their competitive advantage on human resources, they need to consider the challenges of voluntary mobility, lack of motivation, and negotiation. Even when a particular employee skill set is difficult to imitate for competitors, these challenges may threaten a firm's advantageous position.